So hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are. My name is Engin, I'm the chapter director for StartupGrind Tallinn, and today we have a great guest speaker, Ozan Sönmez. And before giving him this stage and shooting my questions, I want to give a slight introduction about StartupGrind. It is the world's largest community of startups and entrepreneurs all around the world, connecting 6.5 million entrepreneurs through more than 120 chapters around the world. So we do the events right now virtually around the world. So that gives us the opportunity that people can join from anywhere, basically. And you see there is the chat there's the chat and Q&A. If you have any questions, just put in the Q&A. I will direct them to Ozan during or at the end of the session. And after we finish in 1 hour, I will still keep it for 15 minutes if anyone wants to interact, network. So that is the chance. That's the most we can do in virtual events, that we cannot have a drink together, but yeah, we can still chat. And that's it. And so I want to introduce very briefly Ozan and then start my questions. So Ozan wears a lot of hats. So he is not a person to define in just one sentence or one company or occupation. It's quite complicated. And I will not go into everything because that will take at least 5 minutes. So I will more focus on the most. So basically, he creates accelerator programs. He is an angel investor. He mentors startups in a brutally honest way, which we will talk about, obviously. He's a serial founder. He spent several years in Middle East, Turkey, and United States in the Bay Area. So he has an idea about all these 3 different regions. He is also an e-resident of Estonia, so that is also something relevant with Estonia. And he was the founder and the ex-chapter director for StartupGrind Istanbul many years ago. And just a fun fact, we are graduated from the same high school.
Yeah.
So, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the invitation. It means a lot. As you mentioned, like it's been 10 years. 2013, when Derek and I had a conversation to create StartupGrind in Istanbul, and that was the time I was planning to move out of Turkey. Nothing was yet done, but so I said I'll be happy, and we had a great 4 or 5 sessions with pretty reputable entrepreneurs. One was the founder of YellowX CPD, Melih. We even had the first live event in the new YellowX CPD campus. For those who don't know YellowX CPD, they were acquired by Delivery Hero for over, I think, more than $300 million or even more. Not sure about the numbers. And then I
think it was more, maybe
600
maybe
something.
Around 700.
700.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we don't count millions after a point, right? I'm sure they do, but like for us, it's okay. And I had a conversation with the then CEO of Yonca Group, Dilaver Syed, who recently is appointed by the US State Department to lead an SME effort. So he's a super honest and intelligent founder and a social entrepreneur in that sense. Social sense is huge. We had conversations with one of the first Turkish entrepreneurs who went to US and fundraised, which was Emre Sokulu, was founder Group S, and Emrah Kaya. So really had a good start, and then I had to leave Turkey to live in Middle East, and then I moved to Silicon Valley. So, but StartupGrind.
So we are talking about the years
10 years ago,
2013, 14, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So
right.
And now being back as a guest, it really makes my heart beat. So I'm happy for the invitation.
Yeah, because we, as the chapter directors, we are trying to create a community in the local areas and to connect successful entrepreneurs, founders, or anyone in the system to give back to the community. So that's the idea. So you both as a organizer, and now you didn't reject my invitation. So I want to concentrate during this around 45 minutes we have. I want to concentrate not so much on what you have done, but I know you have done a lot, so that's why.
Let's help the founders.
But more on the things that you have learned out of things, so we can have a more general picture that I believe is much more useful and valuable for other founders or anyone watching,
100%.
listening to us.
I agree.
So can you just give me, but very shortly, a very brief introduction yourself? I already did, but if in case you want to add, but really shortly, and then I want to continue with my questions.
So I had two lives. I started teaching and doing finance in my early career, but I had been an innovator for a while. And for the last 10 years, my bread and butter and everything I do is to build systems that help founders. One probably good reason is my daughter. So I believe, and sorry for the French, I believe we fucked up the world pretty badly. Large corporations, governments are not going to do anything for the whole world. Startups is the only path forward. Startups are the only organizations and communities that will make significant change and make things better in our life. So ever since I had that conviction, I've been spending my time, my money, my hours, my brain cells to help founders all over the world. That's basically what I do.
All right, very, very brief and to the point. I know you even tattooed something which your daughter did.
Yeah, it looks funny, but this is like a drawing. It literally is a real tattoo, so you can't lick it off. It's a pink heart with two chicks inside. One is a papa chick and one is a daughter chick. And that is something that my daughter drew when she was 4 or 5. And long story short, I carried it with me many years to wherever I moved. And then all of a sudden I was moving back and forth between the States and Turkey. So I decided I had a tattoo parlor right behind my office and my house in San Francisco. So I took it off the wall, went to the tattoo artist. I said, draw this, and he did it. So yeah, so I have this lovely pink heart on me for a while.
So for the audience, maybe what we are talking about might sound a little bit irrelevant with today's thing, but I think there is quite a relevancy because, I mean, maybe some founders or investors are known to life or have their main motivation as money or other things, but this is a very, very clear proof, and I know your sincerity, so I totally trust what you are saying. So people don't necessarily do it for money or some other reasons, definitely just to help people. I know you are big in education area as well.
Yeah, this is the whole reason.
Yeah. So let's talk about mentoring. My first question would be, why are you so brutally honest for entrepreneurs? And from where the definition comes? Talk us a little bit about it. And also about other mentors or fake mentors. What is the problem you see in the area generally?
So, I mean, it's today I was having a conversation with a good friend, and we share the same traits. We like to tell things as they are. We like to be as honest as possible, as caring as possible, as compassionate as possible, but we don't want to mince our words. Today, because of social media, a lot of investors, a lot of people in the entrepreneurship ecosystem are very cautious about how they interact with the outside world, how they interact with other founders. Same goes true with investors. So investors have an inherent need. They don't want to be known as the idiot who passed on investing in a unicorn a couple of years later, a couple of years down the road. So there's a reason why investors don't share why they do not invest in some companies. They don't share their anti-portfolio. Really good investors do, but not everybody. Same goes true for mentors. We don't usually like to say why we failed at certain things. And you also don't like to look like the bad guy in the room. Nobody likes to hear that their children are ugly. But if we want to serve the general good of people, if we want to serve the startups, if we have a conviction, anybody has a conviction, much like I do, that helping startups is the only path to scale efforts to make the world more efficient, better run, better organized, and more green, more sustainable, we need to help the founders. So if I see a founder who is not in his right mindset, who has not done the homework, who does not understand the difficulties of building a scalable startup, who is very naive about fundraising, and who doesn't even understand why he should be fundraising or what is fundraising, what does fundraising mean, I take it as my duty to make it as clean as possible, as honest as possible, to tell them. And I did not assume people were doing the other way around. And in one of the events, probably Startup Turkey or Startup Istanbul, a founder came to me and he said, everybody had loved my pitch, yet you hated it. I don't think you understand what we're doing, but I will think about it. So, okay, fair enough. I mean, if I'm wrong about what you just pitched, I'm fine. I mean, go ahead, do it. I mean, but there are things that I don't like. You could have mentioned this, you could have mentioned that. And then the next day he came back and said, you know what, it was really difficult for me to go back and like go through what you told me, but now I understand what you mean, and I think you're right. I did not know this, I did not know that, I didn't think this way, and this is a very relevant way. It could be mine or yours, but you gave me a different perspective, and for that, I'm a better founder. And I asked him, like, how come you did not hear any of this before? I'm not like the smartest person in the room. They said, a lot of people were saying really great things about me because I was a successful entrepreneur. So everybody was giving this startup founder good words and everything else. And nobody wanted to have him feel bad about themselves. So they wanted to keep a relationship. I don't care. I don't care to keep a relationship with mutual, you give me something, I give you something, you scratch my back, I scratch your back attitude. I don't like that. If I want to work with a founder, I work with a founder. If I don't want to work with a founder, I don't work with a founder. So there's nothing I will gain from founders, especially in public events. I mean, I'm there as a mentor, I'm there as a judge. I'll be as honest as possible, not thinking about if this founder will work with me, they will let me in their round. I'm not an investor usually. So he came back and said, you're brutally honest, and sometimes people will not understand this attitude, but I appreciate it. And I said, okay, I did not think I was brutally honest until he told me this. And then at another event, I have a really funny picture. I had a baseball bat in my head just because there were like playthings around, there were balls, and I just happened to have a baseball bat in my head. And one founder was pitching, and I was like literally waving the baseball bat. So I like doing that little move. It's a Jedi move. And he told me, you are a startup, your shoulder to cry for startups. So okay, that's an interesting quotation. I did not put it myself. But then you hit us with the bat, that's why you're a shoulder to cry for startups. So I make them cry first, and I give them my shoulder. I pat them, I want to console. I don't want them to feel bad about themselves. And I really want to tell the founders, There's nothing wrong about them as an individual, as a founder. But this thing, this startup thing is different. It may fail, and I don't want it to fail, but I also don't want the founder to fail because they're going after a bad road. And if I can see it, I read a lot, I watch a lot, I spend a lot of time understanding different business models, how things have worked. I'm a history buff, so I read a lot of anecdotes of previous successful founders and unsuccessful founders. But the founder doesn't have the time to do it. It's my job to be a good instructor, good mentor, good consultant. So it's my job to learn. It's not the founder's job to learn everything about what happened before. They are doers. And I understand them because when I'm founding something myself, I'm the same way. So they may be making the same mistake that was done many times before. And I'm just there to tell them, don't do this. A lot of people tried it and failed. Do it differently. If they like it, if they open their ears, they may save their time, they may save their money, they may save investors' money, they may save their co-founders' time, their first employees' time, and all the time, all the resources that they may save doing something the right way may change my life, may change my daughter's life, may change everybody's life. If a founder fails after fundraising, it means the money is wasted, the time is wasted, the energy is wasted. It shouldn't be wasted. It shouldn't be put into something useful. And I figured that out sooner in my career when I was in Turkey. And I said, okay, this is what I want to do. Like, I don't care what people think of me. There's a famous saying, like, if I really wanted everybody to like me, I would be selling ice cream. I'm not selling ice cream. If people don't like me, I can't care less. But if they survive because of something I told them, because it hurt them, like their feelings, and then it made them think, okay, wait a second, why am I angry at this guy who is nobody? And maybe I pointed out a big mistake you were doing and you're not comfortable with that mistake. Nobody is. But if you face that mistake that somebody highlighted for you, and go, okay, wait a sec. Okay, I don't like what he told me. Why didn't I like what he told me? Because there's a gap. Okay, what can I do to fill this gap? That's constructive. That's what I'm trying to do.
So founders should have some love and hate relation with you, I guess.
Absolutely.
And I assume more hate than love, because I don't think not so much.
I mean,
and your attitude
mostly indifferent.
Your attitude should function as a filter as well.
Yeah, it does.
So if they cannot handle that, then maybe they should not be entrepreneurs.
Exactly the point. So I keep telling them the same thing. If they get angry at my comments, I'm not an investor. I'm not a critical player in their domain. I'm not going to make or break them. Yet, if they get pissed off at somebody who is insignificant, if they get pissed off at a comment, then there may be something wrong. Maybe an investor will make the same comment, who has a lot of money, a lot of power. Maybe their co-founder will tell them the same thing. And if they get pissed off at that, that's a big problem. They need to solve that problem. But my comments is you can just wave it off. But if I can make you angry, it means there's something wrong. And you just need to deep down go inside and feel what's wrong. Why am I angry? Why am I defending myself? And I keep telling the founders, if you are right, I'm wrong, I'm happy. It means I learned something from you. But if I'm right and you are wrong, and if you fail, I will be unhappy, because I will be feeling bad because I did not convince you that the path you're going forward is the wrong one and you're wasting time. I don't see it as a good thing. So don't waste time. This is the whole thing I'm here for. We're going to live hopefully another 80 years, 100 years. And we need all the help we can get from everybody to make this place livable and not fuck it up even further.
Right. Just about mentoring, we can talk a few hours with you, I guess. But yeah, let's move to some other related topics.
Sure.
So you mentor lots of startups. So you teach them how to pitch. You understand the concept of investments from both sides. I mean, you understand several different themes in entrepreneurship. However, I know you have companies, you have startups, but as far as I understand, you have never dedicated 100% of your time at any at any time, at any date, to one startup and go for it full time. I mean, you have not been 100% startuper, as far as I understand.
I agree.
So what is the strategy behind that you chose different paths, creating accelerator programs, mentoring? And also, can we relate it to some of your failures in the past? Is there any relation with that? So can you talk about this?
Unfortunately, there are. So first, I'm not committing. There are a couple of reasons, and I tell this in my trainings as well. Building a startup requires a lot of dedication, a lot of conviction, and you need to risk a lot, always. Building a lifestyle company that will be with you for a while is different. You can take your time. You can build a profitable business, and you can make that can make you happy. So that is probably why I don't like to build super scalable startups. I have not attempted to do it, and I don't want to do it. And I tell people the difference. The minute you start building a scalable startup, the minute you agree and you're going for investments, the minute you agree, you're going to sell that company. A lot of founders don't understand this. They feel, oh, I'm going to get money and I'll build a better startup. No, I mean, the minute you get somebody else's money, your promise is within 7 to 10 years, I am going to sell this, whatever I'm building. I am not comfortable with that idea, with Sage or Zillion. So those are the two things. I'm building technology-based companies. You can call them startups, but I'm not going to follow the traditional path, or it's not actually the traditional path, but the most famous path of get into an accelerator, fundraise, and go to VCs and fundraise and move and exit. That's not what I want to do. It's super stressful. It takes a lot of time away from yourself. And founder mentality, founder health is being very openly discussed these days. And it really takes a lot of time from your family, from your life. That's not what I want to do at this stage in my life. I'm 42 years old. I don't want to be rushing through this 5 and 6 years of my time trying to build something that is going to be hundreds of millions of dollars worth and miss out my productive years, my enjoyable years in life, where I have the energy, physical ability, health, and financial means. So these next 6, 7 years, I want to balance my life. I want to pay attention to myself. I want to pay attention to my loved ones. And I want to build not wealth, but financial stability in my life. That's where I'm at the moment. And founders need to understand.
Yeah, a quick question here. How and when did you realize this? Because it is a significant difference, I understand, but it is not always easy to understand what is better for yourself. So how was the moment that you realized to prefer lifestyle kind of businesses?
I think I was demystified, like these myth busters. There was a documentary or like a series when there's myths and couple of people, engineers, get into them and they myth bust. The myth of Silicon Valley and San Francisco Bay Area is busted for me because I started living there in 2016 and I lived there for 3 years. I have seen how ridiculous it could be, it is portrayed, and how glorious it seems like from an outsider's perspective, this whole world of unicorns and accelerators and funds. I have seen so many people raise a lot of money for nothing and waste it all. One great example is like Juicero. I don't know if you know this. Like those who don't know, just Google Juicero bubble, Juicero bust. I have seen so many great engineers, great talent, building things that are only built to fundraise, but not to be sustainable. And that's disappointing for me. Like I respect a lot of the structural changes that the VC environment has created, the angels have created. They have accelerated a lot of the new technology development with everything else. However, I don't think that's the right path for everybody. So if you want to build a startup with positive unit economics, with a sustainable business model, increasing your impact and your revenue year by year, and building a sustainable, strong company for yourself and for the loved ones and for people you like and you love, you don't need to build a startup. I have discovered that I'm not a good manager. I am a terrible manager. I'm a great creator, innovator, and I get things done. I move people, I create networks, but I don't manage people. So knowing I can't manage people, I cannot build a startup that exceeds over 10 people. And I want to work with people I like. I want to have a conversation. I want to build something with all of them. And I want to work with people I know. When you're 20, 25, 30, 100, you don't know anybody you're working with. I don't want that in my life. So that's about like knowing yourself. I'm a terrible manager. I cannot manage more than 10 people. I can't even barely manage 10 people from many perspectives. And I don't
But on
want
the other
this
side,
in my life.
you are a good project manager, like program manager. You create programs.
I
Maybe
create
not
things.
directly. Yeah.
Yeah. So my job is now, even with Zillion and Sage, I'm like the catalyzer in all those, like Zillion pitches and Sage. Those are the two technology-based startups that I'm building with founders, with my partners. And even they are not things I'm very good at managing. I can't scale them if I don't have people with me who knows how to manage things, who to do operations, who to do project management. And that's who I am. I figured that out quite late in my life, and I demystified myself out of the Silicon Valley attitude of doing things. Therefore, I'm not building startups. I'm not going to be doing any technology-based startups in my life, probably because of all these. Plus, I'm really impatient. I am not a good person to agree on things. I'm a stubborn person myself. Like personally, I'm very stubborn. I can only respect people and listen to people that I like, or I can only do things differently if the people who are telling me are people I respect. So I'm not a good person to be managed. And that's a characteristic issue. And can I make a living out of this? So far, so good. I can't complain. Am I going to be a multi-millionaire? No. Do I care? Not really. So I'm doing something I like. And that's not for every startup. That's not for every founder. Everybody has to know what motivates them.
If you were a founder, would you like to have a mentor like yourself?
So if I'm in my current like lifestyle technology company, I like mentors. I have 3 or 4 people I touch base with, and they give me a hard time. I appreciate it 100%. But I told them, this is why I asked their advice. I'm not asking their advice to fundraise. I'm not asking their advice to scale this. I'm just asking their advice to build a sustainable business. And they know what I want. And because they know what I want, they give me their time, and I respect their ideas, and they challenge me a lot. Like I have 2 people who kind of gives me a lot of crap, and I have to deal with it, and I like it. They give it to me as I would give it to other people, and they highlight what I am not good at. And because I also know inherently what I'm not good at, I agree with them, and I try to find ways to mitigate that gap. One of them is a good friend. I had a conversation today, Bora. He's guided me towards a couple of things. And it's like, you're lazy. You're not a good project manager. Yeah, I'm not. I have to find somebody who's a good project manager. I have to find somebody who's a good operator. And same, I have a good friend, Adi. He gives me a lot of crap about my business models. And I bounce back ideas from him as well. It's like, and I go like, okay, you're right. I mean, I tried this. I thought this could work, but it doesn't seem like it's working. I agree there's something wrong, and let me think about ways that I can mitigate that. And they give it to me as I would give it to anybody else, and I respect them and I thank them a lot.
All right. At some point, I would also like to ask you about my startup, so you can
Anytime.
challenge. You can challenge
Anytime.
me. Okay. So you also think that many founders cannot see further, concentrate so much in their own product.
Yeah.
So what can you elaborate about this idea, and why is it so common? What is the reason behind that?
Yeah. So I think a lot of the founders wake up and the world is round and they start walking in a certain pace, but they also forget that the world is turning around as well. So the world is moving and a lot of things are moving behind them, around them. Some things are moving faster, some things are moving slower, but because they're focused on their own pace and their own narrow environment, they don't see the whole perspective. They don't see what's coming. What are the general trends? And humans have biases. Most people do not agree they're biased, and that is why they make mistakes. If you are biased in any way about your own ability, about how the world is going, it's very hard to change that bias until somebody comes and tells you a different thing. It's like faith. If you're in one faith, no matter how many people come and tell you about other faiths, other ways of believing, you're not going to believe anybody else because you have your own. That's sometimes I feel like this is the path of the startups. They have to have conviction, but not faith. Conviction is belief that things will happen in a certain way if they do certain things. So that's a path. That's okay. That's great. Every founder has to have a conviction. But startups are not religions. They're not lovable objects. Startups will not love you back. Your idea does not exist. It doesn't love you. So if you trust one idea, one startup, one path, or one way, like faith, then you might actually drive yourself crazy. You might be in a suicidal mission because it's your faith. So that's not the right path to spend life. Have a conviction, have beliefs on how things will move out. Plan yourself, but never take it as God-given or written on stone and the things that will not change. I have convictions about my own startups. I have strong convictions about why Zillion pitches is important, why Sage is very important. But at the other hand, if somebody challenges me, if reality challenges me, then I have to just stop doing that path and like understand what's going on. This happened to me with Sage. We built it. We assumed parents will pay for this entrepreneurial training, to put it shortly, and young adults, 14 to 18, will enjoy this because this is going to give them ability for life. Yet, teenagers don't care about anything else but their games, their social media, their Slack, their Instagram. They don't care about their future, not as much as their parents are worried. So if I had insisted on trying to sell this idea to parents, we would have felt pain. But then I said, okay, I realize it. I agree. I think teenagers are more irresponsible today than they should be, but I can't change it. I can't insist on creating a more conscionable teenager life because a teenager is a teenager. My daughter is 12. I can't convince her to do anything unless I found smart ways to do it. So I can't convince teenagers to build skills. So I have to change my business model. I have to change how I sell, how I market myself, how I build my product. And if I had faith in that, I would have been still failing. But we changed our business model. We changed our marketing approach. We changed our efforts. We nailed our first global B2B client in less than a month after we changed our model. I said, okay, seems like working. So that's what I want to tell to founders. Like, have a conviction, base your assumptions on things that you believe in, but don't make it a religion. Don't make it a cult. Cults don't end up well.
So the conviction, the passion should be there, but
100%.
not too much, not exaggerated level of love or conviction, maybe.
That's actually why some part of Silicon Valley, the mystification happened, like all this Kalanick culture, Uber culture. I think even like Airbnb is a super successful company now, but they also have like this mystery and magical culture. Like that's a little over exaggerated for me, to be honest.
But that's how they sell it, how they market
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Exactly. But that's not how they started. So people, when they read about how Uber started, how Airbnb started, how these large companies,
it's all storytelling.
Yeah, exactly. It's just mystery how eBay started. Oh, this guy was in love with her then girlfriend, and he wanted to help her collect beanie dispensers, and that's how he created eBay. Bullshit. That's not how it happened. But that's the story. It writes on the website, and that's not real. So people have to have that kind of sense of reality in them, in a way.
Right. So with your last three companies, the most recent ones, I want to ask very brief questions for each of them, because we are actually running out of time. I have still more to go. So Ozan is the founder of YellowX, Zillion Pitches, and Sage HQ at the moment. And YellowX functions kind of an umbrella company above those, because the other two are spin-offs from that. So through YellowX, you mainly do consultancy, create accelerator programs.
Exactly.
And you have done it in different regions in the world. So I would like you to very briefly compare the Silicon Valley, San Francisco area, not with each of them, but maybe we can say Bay Area and the rest of the world. I think that is a better way, take it the way you like.
No, you did a good analogy, and I keep saying people, the Bay Area is not part of this world, so it has different quote unquote animals. They think differently. They look like they're human, but they're not. They don't behave like humans. They're very irrational in their idea, in their way, in their attitudes. It's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just what it is. They behave differently.
What do you mean irrational? How irrational?
Completely irrational. Like investing money at a scale that has been never available before to startups that don't have a business model, investing in sizes that just are mind-blowing in the general sense of the world in economic terms. So few people controlling so much wealth, not only unreconcilable with the rest of the world, but even very different than the rest of the US. And it's just a different place of different mindset. And it's not just the mindset of let's do something different, let's break boundaries, let's be innovative, blah, blah, blah. That's something I appreciate. The courage, the resistance to the resistance to the fear of failure. Those are the things that are very important. But again, I think it's completely disconnected with the rest of the world. So no region, no country, no city, nobody should really care about doing things the way it's done in Silicon Valley, because the odds and the structures are super different. The history of why it happened in Silicon Valley will not be replicated anywhere else. So that's kind of my conclusion after living there for many years.
So if so, we founders, what we learned from Silicon Valley, the stories from there, how can we adapt it to our own startups in different parts of the world? Because we obviously cannot take it and imply it. Basically, doesn't work. There should be some localization with the mindset. Absolutely. And how do you do it when you create programs for different regions?
So one thing I keep telling to founders is build a positive unit economic company. You don't need to spend $1 and make 60 cents because other investors are giving you the money to spend. Like literally, a lot of the startups in the US, in San Francisco, starting from there, are spending $1, they're getting 0.6% cents in return. That's not sustainable. Like you're paying $1, getting 0.6 for many years, with the hope that you will become a cartel or you'll become a monopoly and you can charge $5, $10, $100 for the $1 you spend. That is going to take huge amounts of time and wealth. And that's what Jeff Bezos did with Amazon. That's what Apple did. There are so few companies who can charge whatever they want, and yet nobody will challenge them. There are very few companies who can do that. Not even Facebook can do that, but Apple can do it. Amazon can do it. Maybe SpaceX will be able to do it. Maybe Tesla will be able to do it.
Uber has been doing it, as far as I know.
So
they are non-profitable.
Uber will not be doing it forever, and the price after their IPO just shows that their unit economics is suffering. Their Uber Eats model will make a lot of money, probably, and same even with Amazon. AWS is making more money than Amazon, but that's the power of the monopoly. They had so much power to invest, and they built their own technology. Amazing work. So what the rest of the world startups can do is focus on unit economics from day one. You can finance getting into a positive unit economics. That's no problem. You can go to investors, you can go to angels. That's okay. But the basic unit economics has to work. Acquiring a customer should cost you less than the lifetime value of the customer. Simple. And this simplicity is sometimes missed on the founder side, because they keep saying, oh, if we have enough, then who cares about unit economics? So all these stories about Uber and Airbnb and all the others are not doing a service to the understanding the metaphysics of the founders. They're thinking supernatural. They have to be natural. They have to start making money. They have to start selling. Then, in order to grow, of course, there are VCs, there are angels, there are different funds. That's no problem in fundraising. But just raising funds for a negative unit economic business without a tangible plan to turn it into a profitable one in a short amount of period is not going to serve anybody, except when you're in San Francisco or in Bay Area in general. So that's the difference. In Middle East, there's a lot of money.
Even maybe there, the models might be changing, isn't it?
Exactly. So there is going to be a lot of debates. It's already been happening within the private sector versus the public sector, which is the longer startups stay private, the longer it becomes difficult to support an IPO, to go public, because they don't report anything in the public period. They can spend whatever they want, however they want, and we have seen bad examples of this with WeWork. Is a good horror story for private investors. We have seen the same with Theranos. It's another horrible example, but there are so many more. Yet, when the public sector comes in, when you need to work within certain boundaries that the financial sector puts you in, then you need to report earnings, you need to report compliance and everything else. It just goes down the hill. Startups have to be aware of that. They need to build a sustainable long-term business. That's what I care about. Profitability may come later. Okay, fine. But unit economics positive is critical. That's why I keep telling to startups that come to our programs. And if they insist that they will be the next Facebook, next Google, next whatever, and I tell them how much money do they need to raise, and does that money exist in where they are? And usually the answer is no, and they don't like it. There's so many mythologies around it with the success stories. With the movie, I think Facebook movie did a great disservice. It showed it as if like one guy woke up with a dating app and then turned it into this empire. It's just mythology again.
Yeah, and it's great that you concentrate the whole problem into one thing, like the unit economics, so that it is more clear for people to understand, because there are so many aspects.
Exactly.
And how is the situation seen from that side? For example, not only from Bay Area, but from top institutions, top universities, because you are ambassador of UC Berkeley, you have associations with Harvard, MIT. So how is the world seen from their eyes in terms of entrepreneurship, startup ecosystem? Are people there aware of how things work in the rest of the
Not
world?
really.
The competition, the potential competition, how is it seen from there?
So it's really interesting when you look into the last 20 years, there aren't many US-based companies compared to the amount of companies that exist and get fundraised in US. Not many of them goes international because US is such a big market. A lot of the founders in US don't care about anywhere else but US. Maybe Canada, but not even that. Maybe Mexico, but not even that. So a lot of the times US-based founders start in US, grow in US, sell in US. It's the other way around that works much interestingly. A lot of founders in Europe and Middle East and Africa and other places, like take the example of TikTok, even in China, again, if you're in China, it's a big enough market, you can build in China, stay in China, exit in China. But if you're a European startup, if you are a Middle Eastern startup, if you're an African startup, you can't stay where you are and grow big. So you need to expand. The best example is always the Israelis have a very small market. They need to go out as quickly as possible, probably at day one. So the influx of European startups, Middle Eastern startups trying to access US is far larger than the startups trying to access the rest of the world. And yes, we have LinkedIn, social media, Twitter, and Facebook, and everything else, but there are so much more startups, so many more startups in US. They don't care about the rest of the world because the rest of the world is not big enough markets when you're in the US. So it's about the market size and appetite. I'm mentoring in corporate accelerator programs, partly with MIT, partly with UC Berkeley. And when we go to corporates in Europe, they struggle because they're not innovative enough. The corporates themselves are not innovative enough. The one thing I really like about how things are done in the US, especially in the Bay Area, is they don't think about, they have a belief that technology will solve everything. There's always this new technology coming, like currently it's the metaverse that's being discussed highly, or Web3. I believe in that as an idea that will move faster. And they think always about 10 years from now, 20 years from now. I respect it a lot. They have the economic power to think about something that will happen in 20 years. And the stability as well. In Europe, in Asia, in Middle East, we don't have that stability. As we can see in today's, like last week's events, and this is just the beginning. We are still in a mess. We're super geographically mixed, historically mixed, and this is going to create problems for a very long time. US, geographically separated from everything else. They have the most pacifist country in the planet, Canada. They actually had a war between themselves, which was a funny one, but let's not get into that. And they have conquered the Latin American part. They have conquered Mexico with their economic might. And they are untouchable geographically. That's one of the reasons why they're super happy. They don't care about the rest of the world. They're big enough. They're happy enough. And they don't have shit to deal with as much as we do in Middle East, in Europe, in Asia, in Africa. So that's a big advantage. And they're using that advantage. They're making 10-year, 20-year plans very easily because they have the stability. We, not so much. So I think that's something I envy in US. Sometimes I miss that in US. When you go there and people are thinking about something that will happen in 10 years, it's so easy, no very visionaries. Yeah, you can be a visionary when you're not debating about who will bomb you in 2 weeks. Like, that's easy to be a visionary in. Not the world we are at the moment, unfortunately.
Yeah, great answer. By the way, do you have 15 minutes extra for extension? Because the conversation is going very good. I have a few more questions, and also there are questions in the chat.
Yeah, I have a meeting with a startup, but I already told them I will be late for 15 minutes yesterday, so it should be fine.
All right, so I will shoot a few more questions before I
Sure.
take the ones from the chat.
Sure.
Yeah, connected to you were mentioning about the vision that the people in the US have. So when we go back a little, let's say 10 years, 15 years back, for example, I did my master's degree in innovation studies in 2005. And when I said the term innovation to people like us, educated university, they didn't know the word innovation in 2005.
Yeah.
Seriously, I mean, it was really, really shocking for me. I did it in Sweden, so they were one step further maybe. But yeah. So, and then
that's true.
Now in the startup world, we talk about the lean startup, business canvas, all these methodology that exist only for accelerators for the last 10 years, 12 years maybe.
Yeah.
And these are becoming more important. So my question is, what do you see any kind of anything at this moment, at this day, that we overlook, that we don't understand, we don't know what it is as an average or even, more than average person, like the people in this area, but which will have a very crucial function or something role in our lives or in 5 to 10 years in the future? What is trending now?
So
that is overlooked?
The pandemic helped me to do a few things. One of them is to hone my cooking skills. Like, you are in my hometown, Izmir, and those who know, you're in the Aegean Sea part of the world, which we really make good food, healthy food, Mediterranean food, Asian food. So for a couple of months when the pandemic hit, I made a lot of zeytinyağlı with like metzes with olive oil. And after that, I dived headlong into the utopian, dystopian, and science fiction literature. The reason I did that is I wanted to kind of answer the same questions, like what is going to happen 20 years from now, since we are in a pandemic, which is unprecedented in the world, has happened hundreds of years ago, the Spanish flu, whatever, and nobody assumed this will be the case. This could have happened. A lot of smart people, as we have seen in documentaries that aired later or almost at the same time, a lot of people were warning us about the possibility of an animal to human born pandemic, but the rest of the world had no clue. We were completely unprepared. I was like, okay, this sounds a lot like a utopian or a dystopian dream, depending on where you look at it from. And I had to learn more. So I read shit tons of books on utopia, dystopia, literature, lectures. And my conclusion after all that is, one, yes, I think we also might be in the matrix. We might be in a simulation. That's a longer discussion. But if we are not in a simulation, we are going to get close to that simulation. And there are a couple of things for that simulation that is going to be made within the technology space. One, yes, the buzzword, metaverse, blah, blah, blah. But even before the metaverse, the ability to own what you create in the digital life that comes with Web 3.0 is going to change a lot of the business models that existed before. So Web 1.0, you consume. Web 2.0, you can create as well, you share. Web 3.0, you own most of the things you share and all the things you share, including your privacy, including your identity, including your input to the whole collective consciousness, digital collective consciousness. So what I think will happen is more and more we will be more involved in non-physical world, the world that we don't necessarily touch, we don't necessarily are physically in, but more in the digital and virtual side of things. It has tremendous potential within the education system. Those who really would like to learn a little bit more about this can read the book Ready Player One. The movie doesn't do service to the ideals in the movie, ideals in the book, Ready Player One and Ready Player Two talks and everything else, not just Ready Player One and Ernest Cline, but a lot of people are focusing on the democratization of education will happen with Web 3.0. Universities are not needed at all within the existing structures they have. Not that the idea is not worth it, but the structures, the physical structures, the pay structures, the student loan structures, the selection structures, they're just going to vanish. And sooner than I think people would like to admit. And everybody, when they have enough means and enough bandwidth, infrastructure, which is the trickiest piece, when you provide enough infrastructure to people with enough opportunities to learn wherever they are, that is going to create a better educated youth. And if the education is global in the literal sense, if any student with a VR headset with a strong bandwidth can access to any education provider, individual or institutional, things will move much faster. We need to get ready for this, but we're not. People over the age of 40, and I'm 42, I'm trying to get my age lower every year. People over the age of 40 need to learn by themselves. We don't know this. We were trained in institutions, set in school. Somebody taught us. We are not self-learners. That's not how we were designed in the last 40 years. My daughter is also getting the self-learning, but she's also has to go to school. She has to have some teacher. And it's also very difficult for her to switch. But the minute we disconnect who teaches where, when, to who learns where, when, the minute we connect them, and the minute we disconnect them and make it virtual, anybody can do it anywhere they like, then it will be a different world. Then things will change. People need to get reskilled. You and me and everybody else who's listening, we need to learn how to learn again in this new world, in this new era of hyper education or global education. I think it all starts with education. And of course, the next stage after we're educated, we need to be healthy. And I think VR may not play a bigger role in this, but Internet of Things, IoT devices, IoT in health, self-help, and device health, that will become more available to a mass. So if you're having a heart attack, if this tells you I'm going to have a heart attack in 15 minutes, I will live longer. But I have to have a healthy life to enjoy the life. And I think education and health will be really critical going forward. We will need to learn better, learn faster, learn by ourselves. We need to learn how to take care of ourselves. And we need to have an enjoyable life. If you are stuck in a bed and some medicine is keeping you alive for 20 years, that's not good life. Nobody wants that. But there will be devices that will tell you you're not going good. You can die in 10 years, 20 years. You need to change this, change that. And I think the integration of healthcare with technology, preventive healthcare especially, is going to be much more important in our life going forward, because we're going to live longer, but we need to live healthier. We need to enjoy the life if we're going to live longer. So education is key.
Yeah, most of the things you were mentioning were somehow related, directly or somehow related to education.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, very interesting topic that I liked so much myself as well. But yeah, we should move on. I will direct you a few questions from the chat because we have a couple of them. Scott is asking, did Ozan have mentors at his start? And if so, what would he have asked or done differently?
What would I have done differently? Not necessarily direct mentors, and in the sense like I'm a mentee and there's a mentor, but my colleagues in the workplaces that I have became the people that mentored me, that guided me, that saved me many, many times. Because I'm a stubborn punk most of the time. If I did not have partners like Beliz, I hope she's listening, in ODTÜ, when I was in San Francisco. If I didn't have her, I would have had a much more difficult time in building companies and building programs. Amal and Abdurrahman, who were part of the original team in KAUST, if they were not there with me, I would not have been successful, if I was any, building new products and new companies. And I learn a lot from people I work with, and not in a relationship like they're my mentors or I'm their mentor, but we co-create. So my mentors, people I learned a lot from, had always been the people I worked with. Mostly had been people I worked with. And on the other hand, I respect a lot of startup founders. I ask them a lot of questions. I learn from them. And I appreciate the line of work I'm in because I can learn from everybody. I have invested in companies in the US. They taught me a lot, not in a traditional mentor-mentee relationship, but I learned how they do business from them. Part of what they were doing was because of my investments, but that was not the whole point. So I always learned a lot from other people. And especially after I started building my technology-based startups, I reached out to people I trust and I started learning from them. We meet occasionally, we meet on a regular basis, so I can get my ass kicked. What would I have done differently? I would probably have written down what I'm going through. I should have written down like a journal of how I made decisions with what impact. I'm not methodical with that. My advice to all founders I work with and anybody I work with is like, have a journal. Write down critical things that somebody told you, how you thought, how you're processing it. And that will be really like a path to your past. What are you doing now and why have you decided to do it? Probably it's a meeting you had 6 months ago, or a conversation you have 3 months ago, or something you read 2 months ago. So these things accumulate and our brain does not carry all that information. So I wish I had written down a lot more than I have, either publicly or privately. So that's something I can have as an answer. I hope it makes sense.
He just wrote, cool, I've been keeping the journal.
Man, love it. You're much smarter than I am. Seriously, like I wish somebody kept me in line and told me write, maybe 20 times a day. And then I'm not organized. I wish I was a little bit more organized to do
that. Jovin is asking a question to me. Why should we go with the assumption that we should adopt what is there in Silicon Valley, even if it is through localization? Well, I asked this question because, I mean, they are known the innovators, the top innovators in the world. And I know that many entrepreneurs around the world are watching what is going on there. So that is the reason I had asked, not necessarily that we have to adapt, but obviously I believe we can learn something from them in a way. So that would be my answer.
Yeah.
Do you want to add on top of this, Ozan?
Well, I think we shouldn't try to do we shouldn't try to replicate what happens in Silicon Valley. It just doesn't make sense. On the other hand, there are a couple of things in culture. The fear of failure is significantly high everywhere else, even in developed countries. Eastern Asia countries have a difficulty. Turkey has a difficulty. Europe has difficulty. Africa, Middle East. Nobody gives a crap about your failures, and actually you carry it with pride in the US, most of the time, in Silicon Valley at least. If you have not failed, people will think you haven't tried hard enough, you haven't hustled enough. But in the other part of the world, when you have failed and you're making it public, people think you are a failure, not that you have failed. And that comes with culture. I think if there anything that we need to look up to, or try to replicate, or try to understand, try to model, is the idea that failure happens. That does not mean you're a failure. So culturally, I think we need to inherit, or we need to steal, we need to copy as much of that culture as possible. Not other parts, not necessarily, but the ability to just move on after failure and carry it with pride. I have not seen that in many parts of the world, and I have not seen that in many startups, many founders. So as a general ecosystem, I mean, of course, there are founders who have failed and who raised in other parts. It's not like Silicon Valley invented startups, but that culture, if we can adapt it, if we can copy it, we should.
Okay, 3 last questions, and then we should wrap up.
Sure.
And I have very quick surprise questions in the end as well. Tunay is asking, what are some red flags Ozan sees frequently in startups from seed to IPO?
Ooh. From seed to execution, from seed to customer. The inability to focus on sales, that is one. It doesn't matter if you're seed stage, if you're idea stage, if you're MVP stage, if you're prototype stage. I ask people, again, this ties to the failure side. I ask people, what's your traction? This is the number one question I ask probably. And they say, oh, we're seed stage. Who cares? Like, you could be at seed stage, but you might have 10, 20, 100, 1,000 people waiting for you to launch the product. Today, it's super easy. If you haven't put up a landing page, if you haven't put up a social media presence, if you haven't been actively advocating for this new value proposition you're creating, but hiding it out, it means you're afraid. You're afraid to fail, which is not the way you should go, or you're afraid to sell, or you're afraid to promise. A sales is a promise. Oh, I'm afraid to promise you that I will sell you something is a critical mistake. I don't care what stage you are. The minute you have an idea, you need to start building traction, not a technology, but a traction. So if you're keeping it hidden for a long time, I don't think you will have a lot of time to live with that mistake. That's one. Two, I need money to start. That's bullshit. Nobody needs money to start. If you are building a solution to cancer, yes, of course, fine. Medical is different. Don't give me that excuse. But unless you're trying to find a cure to cancer, you don't need money to start. You just need to find the right people to sell to. And you don't need the technology to have the people to sell to. So those are a few things. And the other one, I'm a little biased on that one. So doesn't mean that this is right or wrong, and none of this is right or wrong. But if you have been doing this for a very long time, 2 years, 3 years, 6 months, and nobody knows about you, you haven't put it out there, I would be very cautious. And if you don't have any co-founders, if you don't have any full-time people working with you, if you're not working full-time with this, I would have significant doubts about your ability to build a scalable startup. I'm not talking about lifestyle businesses. That's different. But if you're telling me you are building a technology-based scalable startup and everything has been hidden for the past 6 months, I would question it. Sometimes it makes sense. You're trying to build a competitive advantage. But usually it's a sign of fear of failure more than it's not. So those are the couple of things. Everything else you can fix.
And his next question is, are there any recommendations for startups with a post-growth, economic-based business plan in this growth-driven economy?
So there are limits to growth. That's something I trust, I believe. There will be limits to growth in certain industries. This question, the answer to this question depends on which industry you're in. If you're in med tech, health tech, ed tech, education tech, if you're in agro-tech, agriculture technology, you should be able to grow really fast. Now, there's so much room for growth, especially after what happened in the pandemic. Things are changing a lot in those industries. But if you're doing something with advertising technologies, if you're doing games, like hyper casual, even hyper casual games. If you're doing something on enterprise B2B sales or products, those are becoming harder and harder to create competitive advantages with. And those require a lot of investments as well to scale, to grow. Especially the enterprise sales is really cash strict businesses. You need to spend a lot of money with key executives, salespeople, operations, and everything else. So those are difficult businesses to be in. With the pandemic, it's even more difficult now. So the answer to our question depends on the sector. But I think those sectors I told that are favorable, there are sectors that are not favorable.
Okay, last question. What are some of the best communities for founders for sharing experience and learning from each other? I would say StartupGrind is one of them.
100%. So StartupGrind, yes, definitely. Founder Institute. I actually became a chapter director during pandemic for Founder Institute in Turkey. So we were planning to do it in Ankara, physical, and then pandemic hit, we went virtual. We have graduated 20 startups during the pandemic, and most of them are not even established in Turkey. So we built a virtual accelerator program with 2 batches already. We're very happy with the results. So FI is a really strong community, global as well. What else? Community-wise, yeah, my go-to address is always Twitter, not LinkedIn, unfortunately. Unfortunately for LinkedIn, probably. But Twitter is the really great space to build know-how, outreach, and learn from other people. I think that they really deserve a lot more attention from the startups. And there, of course, there's like noise. Use lists in Twitter. Don't follow people. Don't just jam your follow. Just create lists of people that you would like to learn from. Only spend time in those lists. That's my hack to you. What else is a community? I think those are the ones. Of course, there are local communities. There are communities on Slack. They're very useful. Accelerators create good communities most of the time. I'm helping 500 startups with their corporate innovation programs in some countries. So they have a really good network of founders, investors, and hard to get into those accelerators, but they have a community advantage as well. And any accelerator, any group that creates, or if you feel you need to create it, you create it yourself. So build the community you want to be a part of, whether on Slack or on WhatsApp groups, or use your own tools and create community. Clubhouse is a good one. I haven't been on it for a while, but Clubhouse can be a good place to start a community as well. So build your own community.
I remember in the beginning you were active on Clubhouse.
Yeah.
Are you still or?
So I'm still actively communicating with the people I met in Clubhouse, but these days we had been doing events on Clubhouse, and then we had different directions in our work life, so we stopped it. We will probably start again sometime soon, but it was not because Clubhouse died down. I think globally it's still a very active community. In Turkey, it just became a little bit of crap, but like use it the way you want to use it. So you can build a good audience in Clubhouse as well.
Okay, so let's move to one of my favorite parts of the conversation, rapid fire questions.
Haha, oh, okay. Now this is the time I'm gonna embarrass myself.
Yeah, I'm sure you know the concept, but for those who don't know, he should respond very quickly, short answers, quick answers, and my questions are mostly non-business related. So
okay,
just
now
to
I'm
have
sweating.
fun. Winter or summer?
Summer, always. I hate cold.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Any nickname you have had, if you had any when you were a kid?
Dortgoes, that was one. Ozzy is usually what I go. My Starbucks nickname is Ozzy. So
Ozzy.
in the US, they called Jose. They kept saying Jose when I said Ozan. So then I decided to Ozzy, like Ozzy Osbourne. So I like Ozzy.
Morning person or a night owl?
Night. I can't function before 11 a.m.
Okay. Night till what hours, roughly?
My usually go to sleep time is 2 a.m.
Okay. Favorite type of music?
Ooh. Handpan. I love listening to handpan music. I own a handpan. I can't play that thing yet. That's one of the things I want to learn before I die.
All right.
Those of you who don't know handpan, go to Spotify, write handpan. You'll know what it means. It's the most serene sound you can hear. I love it.
On a plane, window or aisle seat? I know you travel a lot, so that should be a
definitely.
big decision.
For plus 10-hour flights, definitely aisle. Less than 4 hours or less than 10 hours, probably window.
At what age did you watch Star Wars for the first time?
17, I'm guessing. Yeah.
And your favorite character?
Han Solo, by far. Brutal, see? And Han shot first.
All right. And something on your bucket list, but not business related, please.
So I have a lot. Handpan playing is one on my bucket list. Shark cage diving is another one. I want to dive. I had sharks around me when I did diving before, but not like big great white sharks. I hope to be able to do that sometime. I'm going shark diving in June, but still not the big great white.
Where,
yeah. So
where are you going?
Hurghada,
I also
in Egypt.
Okay, I also did shark diving in Maldives, and it was amazing experience.
Yeah. Great whites.
Because they are not dangerous. They're the types.
Yeah. They're lovely things. Even great whites are not super dangerous to human. But I'll probably shit my pants when I'm in the water with a great white.
Something you are terrible at?
Ooh, something I'm terrible at. Returning calls is something I'm not really good at.
Returning calls, okay.
Yeah.
So
sometimes
if we
people
call you
me.
And you don't return,
call me again.
Back again.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. That's something I'm not good at.
If your life would be a movie, what genre would that be?
Science fiction, definitely. I would love it to be a science fiction. Yeah.
I guess so actually.
Yeah.
Work related call on Sunday, answer or reject?
No, I give my mobile phone to many people, founders, investors, friends. They can call me anytime they want. So life is not something you can shut off. If you're in my line of work, you just need to be able to pick up calls. Sometimes I'm bad at answering them, but I that's my weakness. But no problem in work calls on Sundays, Saturdays, nights. Life goes on, and there's something called a time zone. So night for you, morning for them.
Yeah.
World is global.
And last question, your undiscovered useless talent, if you have one.
Undiscovered useless talent. Wow, good one.
So, something you do good, but it doesn't work for anything.
I'm learning archery.
It can be useless.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, what good is learning about archery? And I'm becoming better at it after 6 months of trying. But it doesn't. I'm not going to compete. I'm not going to do anything with it. Probably, I'm not going to be shooting animals. I don't like I fish, but shooting things live, that's not my thing. So it's probably it's really useless in that sense.
All right, Ozan.
Nice.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It has been really, really fun, informative, valuable information.
Thank you. Great questions. It's hard to moderate people. It's hard to moderate when you're doing it online as well. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, looking at the chat and everything. And I also did my homework to prepare you some questions.
You did pretty well, my friend. Good job with that. And there are people I know who wrote things on the chat. Now I can see it actually. Shout out to Özge, shout out to Orkun, shout out to, there are people I may not remember, so if I'm missing your names, sorry for that. But great, Scott, Hovin, Tunay, thanks guys a lot for your insights and questions as well. And thank you, Engin, for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. And the recording will be on YouTube channel. So those who registered, they will also already receive a link about it. And if you are not following the chapter, the Tallinn chapter, just follow so you are aware of the next events. So that's it for today. Thanks for joining. Thank you, Ozan. Have a great
Thank you. May the force be with you all. Take care.
Yeah. Bye-bye.